Welcome back to Astronomy Unlocked. This is Brooks Mendenhall with Astronomy Magazine, and I'm joined with Kevin Hahn. Kevin, if you would just introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi. My name is Kevin Hahn. I am the current president of the local Barnard Astronomical Society of Chattanooga, and also longtime volunteer here at the Clarence T. Jones Observatory.
Yeah, and we are here in the lecture room of the Clarence T. Jones Observatory, which has a really interesting and unique history. So could you maybe give us more details about the history of the building itself?
Sure. So it was built in 1936. It was spearheaded by a gentleman named Clarence T. Jones. He was a local architect and president of the BAS, the Barnard Astronomical Society at the time. And he just was the right guy at the right time that knew everybody. And the society had been wanting to get a telescope and observatory built here for a while. Of course, that's a dream of any astronomical society to have there. But during that time, it was the Depression, and the Public Works Administration was working with local education, school systems around the country to help put money into it to help, keep people, in jobs and busy and working and help the economy and stuff. And Clarence was able to work with Commissioner McMillan to help get this building under that initiative. And so with a desire to either use his own 12-inch reflecting telescope he just built with his sons, they home-built telescopes at home to put in here, or the ultimate goal was to put a 20-inch telescope here after it was built. So the funding went through, this place got built, he oversaw everything, designed the building himself to save costs. And then with the help of his sons and all the people that he just knew around town, ended up getting a 20.5-inch telescope, Cassegrain telescope, built and added to this facility in 37.
We're on what is kind of a busy road today, Brainerd Road. So
Yep,
could you
very,
talk
very
about
busy.
maybe the site selection and how that's changed with time?
So there's I guess there's a couple factors for it. The primary one was that we have Missionary Ridge that separates Chattanooga from this area. And so that ridge was able to block out what light pollution there was in 36 from here. You could see the Milky Way back in the day here,
very cool.
which is amazing. And we're on a little bit of a knob here. At the time, it was a good location for it. Plus, this land was donated. It's actually right next to an old elementary school. It just worked out perfectly.
All right, so we are outside at what is technically the front of the Clarence T. Jones Observatory, looking at the facade of the building, although today it's not really used as the front, from what I understand.
Not as often. It's just easier for our parking situation stuff to come in the back door.
Okay, yeah. But it's a beautiful historic building, sort of in the Art Deco style, and the name is there up top, Clarence T. Jones Observatory. And you were telling us an interesting story about how the building got its name?
Yeah, it's kind of a funny, so the thought was Clarence T. Jones was such a driving force for this place on every level. The goal was to name this place after him from the beginning. And that was placed on there against his request. He was a very humble guy, I guess, because it was a Public Works Administration building, a government building, you can't name it after somebody that's alive. And Clarence T. Jones very much was alive at the time. And so they had to cover it in stucco at the time. So several years later, World War II happened. So this place is 36, in 44, being owned by the local school system, they just couldn't handle it anymore. It was too much of a burden. They also thought it was too sophisticated for them to handle. So they donated it to the University of Chattanooga in 44. And so it took it a couple of years, but they finally were, UC is like, hey, we can finally name this building after you, Clarence. And so they removed the stucco. And even as you can see right along the edges, there's a little bit of that stucco still kind of up there from it or whatever.
So they had plans all along to reveal
They did, but...
are they going to wait for him to die? Was that the plan?
Well, if it was in the school system, they wouldn't have had a choice. There was a local city council meeting and kind of, and this is in the paper, but it was like, the banter of going back and forth trying to name the place, and he didn't want it. And they're like, hey, we're going to figure it out. And somebody is like, man, it would be easier to just walk over and shoot him dead to name this thing after him than what they're trying to go through, which is really kind of funny.
It is pretty funny.
Yeah.
That's a great story. All right. So this behind us is actually an interesting piece of equipment. This is the original planetarium projector from the observatory. Is that correct?
Yeah. So when this place was initially built and designed, they always wanted a planetarium. But funding wise, there was just no way to get that under that public works administrative funding.
Right.
And so even though it was a desire, it just wasn't. So what happened is in 1951, a group of the Bernard Astronomical Society members, Clarence T. Jones, decided, hey, let's put a test dome in the library and see if there's interest and see if we can drum up some funding for it. And so they built a 12-foot temporary dome back in the library.
Okay.
Of just cardboard and wood, and had just a few chairs lying around. And Clarence T. Jones went to the local hobby shop and took scrap pieces and whatever and hand built this original projector. It's a dodecahedron copper with just it's a Spitz type kind of projector. This is from an old oscillating fan. This is an add-on later, but this was sitting in that temporary dome
Cool.
For several years.
Could you maybe explain for those who don't know more about what a Spitz type projector is specifically?
Yeah, so essentially these pinholes project and mimic our night sky, and a light bulb basically just sits inside, and light shines through these pinholes, and as they do, they project up onto that little dome.
That's so crazy.
So the kind of neat thing about this projector is that the test dome was pretty successful. And so in 1958, they had an anonymous donation to finally add that planetarium onto here. So in 58, it was added. We have a 24-foot dome planetarium built, and this was moved into it. This is an old switchboard, so this was moved onto this, and a local TVA engineer at the time built repurposed it and built the controls and everything for this and placed it in that dome. The amazing thing to me is that it was used in that dome until 2019.
Wow. Yeah, that is very impressive.
Yeah.
And then is the planetarium still active today?
It is very active today.
So what replaced this?
So in 2023, UTC invested in a modern digital projector made by Digitalis Education Solutions.
Cool.
As much as we love this and the history part of it, the digital projector has just been an amazing upgrade here.
Are there any plans at any point to reuse this for special occasions?
No, but that's an interesting thought though. It's more now just our museum piece, to be honest with you, but that would be kind of a fun thing to do sometime though. Maybe when we have our, maybe on an anniversary or something.
Okay, we are here in the telescope room of the Clarence T. Jones Observatory, and I'm joined by Stephen Klein. Stephen, if you would just introduce yourself.
Yeah, so I'm the observatory director here at the Clarence T. Jones Observatory. I actually started this position back in August. So prior to this, I was the planetarium director for about 2 years. So former UTC alumni as well. So it's a nice full circle coming back to this.
Awesome. And we are standing here beneath this monster telescope in this very cool orange color, although not for long, I understand.
Right. So we are looking to repaint this. There's a whole backstory of discovering that this is lead paint and wrenches being thrown in our plans of our timeline for things. But we are looking to kind of modernize the color scheme, kind of bring it into this kind of nicer dark navy, some lunar gray towards the top. So it's going to have a paint job soonish. Just because we are we're part of the UT system. This is not UT ball orange, I guess. I feel the need to clarify that, but it's a happy coincidence for Vols fans.
Could you tell us a little bit about the history of the telescope itself? I think it's just another part of sort of the interesting story of this.
Absolutely. So this is part of what I love about this building is from bricks to telescope, so much of it is just pure Chattanooga. So 95, 99, however you want to slice it up, % of this is all Chattanooga based. So it's cast iron, that was cast at the Eureka Foundry downtown, which is unfortunately taken down now. But all of this time, effort, materials comes from the Chattanooga area. So it's this very local, very cherished piece of Chattanooga history. The mirrors are currently out of it, so we just got them resurfaced this past summer. So they were really, really dirty. We didn't realize how dirty they were until we took them out. It's the first time they've been out in about 50 years, so much needed maintenance. So we did that over the summer. But those mirrors were initially ground and polished in the basement of this building. So even though those mirrors, the glass did not initially come from the Chattanooga area, they came from Corning, New York, it's still, that effort ties back to Chattanooga in that way. And Clarence and his sons are the ones who ground those.
And was it pretty common in 1936 to build your own telescope of this size and scale?
To this size and scale, not really. To build your own telescope, debatably, if you had the resources and things like that, you didn't really have Amazon just to go add to cart, purchase. So there was a lot more effort going into telescope making back in the day. So Chattanooga, on that note, was a bit of a hub for telescope making. So I mentioned earlier, Clarence and his sons ground and polished the mirrors in the basement of this building. So that was a thing they just did. Lots of folks would come here, they would work on telescopes. So it's this really neat other feature of the building that I feel like goes a bit under the radar sometimes.
Interesting. Yeah, so the observatory itself was almost like a telescope, like a workshop or...
Yeah, so part of this history of this telescope is, like I mentioned before, Clarence T. Jones and his sons ground and polished the mirrors in the basement of the building. So throughout the time of this building, getting into the 50s and 60s, with this being here, back in the day, this was the largest amateur telescope in the Southeast. So there's a bit of a history there, a bit of a draw and attraction for people to come here and see it. But also in the basement, they would have workshops for people to come build their own telescopes down in the basement of this building as well. So it just kind of became this hub for people who were interested in astronomy and telescope making.
So we are hosting a live event that is a virtual event for how to choose your best telescope. And this is going to be a lot different, I'm sure, and in some ways very similar to telescopes that are available today.
Yeah.
Right? Could you talk to maybe how this telescope works and how that technology has changed with time?
Yeah, so this is probably the most stripped down this thing has been since it was built. So,
which you guys apologize for, but to me it's really cool to see it in this stage. Like,
that is how I've been marketing it to people. So some people are a little bit bummed that, oh, I can't look at the telescope.
Right.
This is a view that only pops up. I mean, the last time it was
years.
Right. It's rare. So they're initially bummed, but then they get excited.
You explain to people who like astronomy that it's a rare event, you know? They're not going to get to see it again.
Yeah, exactly. We're kind of attuned to those rare events in astronomy. So this is just a Cassegrain telescope. So we have a large primary mirror that sits in the base. We have a secondary mirror about 2/3, a little bit more than that, the way up. So we can put a ton of different eyepieces in there, depending on how we're looking at, how much magnification, field of view, all that fun stuff you would do with a typical telescope. We've added a variety of fancier bits to it over the years. So this telescope does track. One of the things that we've added to the telescope this past semester in the spring are some digital encoders that allow us to more precisely track where our telescope is aimed. So since we are in a bit of suburban sprawl at this point where light pollution is a bit of a bigger concern than it was back in the day, we can find really bright targets really easily, but sometimes we want to look at something fainter that maybe isn't as, I don't know, prominent as something like Jupiter, where we're going to spot that really easily. We can still do some alignment with this telescope, and then with those digital encoders and some planetarium software, we can track where we're aimed and really make those precise adjustments to find whatever we want to look at. So typically what we try to do in the past is I guess it does depend on the season too, but we'll try to pick targets that complement our lecture and planetarium shows when applicable. Doesn't always follow that way, but typically with our star parties that we have, we're on one target, maybe two occasionally for the entire night, just for the sake of people getting up here, looking through it. There's a bit more time.
I think that segues well into my next question, which is just, could you speak to how this space is used, the observatory in general? I think it's interesting, like the sort of a commitment to the original idea and intent of the founders of this space.
Absolutely. So this place was built from the start as an educational facility. So with all the different telescopes, observatories, things out there that are designed and geared towards research, this one was built purely to educate the general public on astronomy and engage people and get them interested. And that's what initially hooked me when I was a student here and kind of pulled me into want to put my time into this place. So our typical Sunday night star parties, what we'll do is we'll have a lecture with some topic, a planetarium show that complements it, and then by the time they're done with both of those things, hopefully it's dark enough and the weather's cooperating, we'll have the telescope open for viewing. The nice thing is, Kevin, the president of the BAS, he's talked about the BAS there already, but the nice thing is that we have volunteers who will bring their own telescopes and set them out at the parking lot.
Cool.
So even though this one's currently out of commission,
Yeah.
we can still have some viewing with the public. And even on those like bad weather nights, there's still just a lot of history and a lot you can learn about just a telescope in general with the Jones. So we use this space as well as just an extra layer of educating and engaging the public on astronomy.
And all of those events are free and open to the public, right?
Exactly. So they're always free. We don't charge for anything. We'll always post kind of a star party schedule on our website, our Instagram, Facebook, just kind of what topics are coming up. So we try to get that out early in the semester so people can kind of plan, ooh, I want to learn about gravitational waves, or I want to learn about black holes, or I want to learn about cosmic horror, or just like kind of those random topics that we choose that are tied into astronomy and really kind of hook people from different disciplines in. And then, yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, thanks so much for sharing information about this telescope with us. It's really incredible to see something like in this state, I think.
I would agree.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Yeah. And once it's together, it's going to look fantastic.
Yeah, we'll have to come back.
Mm-hmm.